to stand here before you today. It is the first event of the day 5 during COP, and day 5 is connected to climate finance, as we all know. And we would like in this side event really to look to under the topic how to boost the uptake in Central Asia. My name is Thorsten Brezina. On behalf of GIZ, the German Development Cooperation Technical Agency, I'm very happy to welcome you all here. We do this side event together with CAREC, the Central Asian Regional Environment Center, and we do this on behalf of the German government in the framework of the Green Central Asia Initiative, the joint integrated initiative of the German government to support the countries of Central Asia in climate-related topics. We all know that Central Asian countries increasingly acknowledging the imperative of sustainable development and recognizing the urgency of addressing climate change through adaptation and mitigation measures. In this context, we understand that climate finance is not just an instrument, but really a driver, important driver for transition towards low carbon economies and sustainability. These challenges are really evident, what we see in Central Asia, and despite the potential of climate finance to technological innovation and foster green projects, there are a lot of hurdles, and many of us know those hurdles in the effective development. The journey towards net zero transformation in Central Asia demands sustainable investment. And we see, for instance, in Kazakhstan, a set of ambitious goals of achieving carbon neutrality by 2060, and all the other countries have developed their strategy or they're on the way. This emphasizes the need for a collaboration effort, engaging not just international donors or state funds, and this is, I think, the key, but also private investment and business. Economic viability becomes very important linchpin for nations and global donors to invest in this transformational journey. And aligning investments with a clear vision, credible strategy, incorporating social dialogue, and avoiding stranded assets become the pivotal elements of this success. Our side event would like to try to bring exactly this on the table in the discussion, looking on one hand, what is the framework, what is the national framework, the international framework, but also then more precise on the level of the region, Central Asia, in order to see the hurdles, but also to see the solutions on this side. And we do it actually in 2 panel discussions. The first more on the macro level. The second one, really looking more in a comprehensive investment planning processes and hurdles in the countries. And it's my honor to invite our distinguished guests to the panel. I would like to invite to the first panel the Deputy Director General of Central Asia and West Asia Department of the Asian Development Bank, Xiong Yang. Please join us at the panel. Her experiences in development work spans over 3 decades in ADB and World Bank Group. At ADB, she led numerous operations across the East and Central Asian and West regions, including country director, department director, and overseeing strategic thematic issues in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department. Ms. Yang holds a postgraduate degree in economics and a bachelor degree in international finance. Please welcome Ms. Yang here. Our second panelist for the first panel is Achala Abisingye, the Director and Head of Programs of Asia at the GGGI, the Global Green Growth Institute. Please welcome Achala. She oversees at GGGI the Asian operation in the GGI member and partner countries to drive green growth, transition, and mobilize finance for climate action and sustainable development in the region. Dr. Abisinge is an international climate change and sustainable development expert with over 20 years of global and national experience in the areas of strategic leadership, managerial fundraising, and research. And our third participant for the first panel is unfortunately not yet here. Hopefully she will join us a little bit later. We are trying to get her catched, but I guess there are the long queues responsible for. But let's then start with the two of you panelists, and once again very much thankful to have you here. And let's start with Dr. Yang. Maybe you can introduce a bit what are the strategic requirements for ADB to provide climate finance for Central Asia countries, having this focus on Central Asia, and what do you see for strategic requirements as we would like to understand a bit what is the need for structural changes and levels of Central Asian countries for making the ground for international climate finance. What's the possibilities? Oh, no. Stop.
Thank you. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. So I'm so happy to be here. And first of all, thank you, GIZ. Thank you, CAREC and Green Central Asia, and also KFW, everyone, and all the Central Asian countries, 5 Central Asian countries. I love those countries a lot. So thank you. Thank you for coming, asking us. I'm delighted to be here. So for ADB, we are doing 3 things to strengthen the Central Asian region, the climate resilience shift. The first thing we are doing is we're enhancing the regional cooperation in Central Asia region. And we actually, on 30th of November, just a few days ago, our president has launched, together with all the ministers of our CAREC, Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation umbrella, just launched the climate change vision for the region. So that was endorsed by all the ministers, very powerful. And there are 3 objectives. First is sustainable development. Second is climate resilience. The third is shared prosperity. So these are very important initiatives. We're working on 5 things under the CAREC climate change vision. The first is energy transition. So we really need to transship the energy to the low carbon energy resilient and also efficiency. So the first is energy. Second is decarbonizing transportation. Reduce the footprint of the transport. Third is smart agriculture, because agriculture is actually sharing a big share in our regions, very important in all the economies. The fourth is green trade. So currently, Central Asian countries are trading, we have to think about how to increase the trade among the Central Asian countries and also from Central Asian countries to other regions like EU and the other Asia, etc. The last one, but not least, is really enhance our green jobs and working together to really for an enhanced region. So the policy work, regional cooperation, and also mobilizing stronger finance. Other 3 things very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young. If you look to the requirements more specifically for ADB, you mentioned those three sectors, or not those three areas. Maybe you could a little bit more explore on what you see as ADB country readiness for ADB credit or loan lines.
The Central Asian countries, the 5 countries are in facing common but very different challenges. For example, in Kazakhstan, the focus will be a decarbonization and energy transition and climate resilience society. And that is also very much the same as Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. The countries, Tajik and Kyrgyzstan Republic, are facing similar challenges. And we are still in the kind of try to mobilize more concessional funding and a lot of stronger capacity building in Tajik and Kyrgyzstan. Just a very big number. For example, we are helping Tajikistan to prepare the enhanced national NDC, determined contribution, and the enhanced NDC, the updated one, requires $8 billion at least investment for Tajikistan. And then if you look at the Tajikistan 2022 GDP, is about 8 billion. It's about 10 billion. Now we talk about 10 billion GDP in Tajikistan. So the NDC contribution will require 80% of the total GDP. So which is really quite a lot for a country like Tajikistan to really design and implement this NDC. So it is kind of difficult also when it comes to institutional development, because currently for us to do a big project like Rogong, which will at least be 5 billion minimum cost. So that is how much percent of GDP? 50% of a GDP of Tajikistan. Obviously, that's a huge challenge. We need to look for ways for resource mobilization and also more concessional resource mobilization.
And maybe one more question regarding the requirements you mentioned. How do you ensure, or how do you coordinate this with the other MDBs, the requirements, the approach, the coordination, cooperation with Central Asian countries?
We cannot achieve our goals, the shared prosperity and the shared sustainable development among Central Asian countries, unless we work together. So it is very important to force a partnership among the countries and also among all the development partners, bilateral, multilateral, and also all the research institutions like today, everyone here, GIZ, CARIC, etc., and also very much so to exchange not just the funding, but very much knowledge and good practice.
Thank you very much. In one moment, I would like maybe to explain for those not knowing it exactly CARIC and CARIC. So the ADB CARIC meaning a broader region for the Central Asian countries, or for the Central Asian countries, while CARIC here is the CARIC ECO, the Central Asia Environment Center. So I think many of you know this, but for those not knowing, there are 2 different CARICs. Yeah, maybe I would then come to Dr. Achala. GGI provides support to countries in designing, implementing policies and institutional frameworks to promote green growth. This involves integrating climate consideration into national development plans and strategies. You have a huge of experience in different countries. What are the best practice countries? I mean, not so much highlighting special countries, but the most important things, I think I would say also what made the difference, why some countries are really moving forward faster than others.
Thank you. Thank you to GIZ and also CARIC for inviting us for this event. And I just want to start perhaps by saying First of all, good morning to all of you, and say that actually we do have a very nice growing relationship with all 5 Central Asian countries. Yesterday we met, our Director General and myself, we met with the minister from Uzbekistan, and then we also had a very nice meeting with Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan ministers as well, to really discuss this growing partnership and how we can strengthen our work in the countries. And GGGI is a young organization compared to ADB, perhaps. We are only 10 years old as an intergovernmental organization, and we are led by His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, who is the former Secretary General of the UN. And our focus is actually the key theme of this meeting, this event, which is how to boost financial uptake, financial attraction, mobilization for our member countries. We do have 48 members right now at GGGI. In Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan are members, and Tajikistan is in accession. And the neighboring countries like Mongolia also are long-standing members of GGGI. In terms of perhaps maybe just before I go to the best practice cases, because I think there is no one size fits all answer here, but I think maybe just to mention few key ingredients that actually have helped countries to mobilize, attract funding. And those include addressing the issues around not having a proper project pipeline, bankable project pipeline. A number of countries that we are working in, we now have started to really seriously focus on developing bankable project pipeline. And now we are also discussing, and I think this is a great opportunity for Central Asian countries also. Now we are going into discussing the next phase of NDCs. I call it the NDC 3.0, that we are going to develop the new NDCs to be submitted in 2025, and linking the NDCs to perhaps a very, very strong project pipeline is going to boost the opportunities for countries to attract more financing. And the second one is the scale. What we are realizing is actually there are quite a lot of funding is out there, but the necessary scale for particularly for private sector to come in is not there. Most of our projects are really, really small. And the private sector, when they want to consider projects, they want to look at the scale. We did support India to have a put solar PV in we call them a floating solar in a lake in Madhya Pradesh in India, and we worked with the World Bank to develop the business case as well as the financial case to attract funding for the project, and it is for 600 megawatt in terms of megawatt size, and this is the biggest floating solar project at the time. And when we develop these kind of at scale projects, the private sector actually looks at them and they are attracted to the projects like that. So that's the second thing I wanted to mention. And then the third thing is the policy alignment. I mean, I cannot emphasize the importance of aligning our financial policies, such as the financial regulations, with fiscal policies such as subsidies, and bring in the thematic policies such as the energy policies. Sometimes we do have taxonomies being developed in this year or last year, but our subsidy policy or our thematic, perhaps the energy policy, sits in the last decade. So aligning the policies, I think, is extremely important to boost the financial uptake in the Central Asian countries. In Uzbekistan, we have a project in Karakal, Pakistan, focusing on climate smart agriculture. And that project, not just looking at the climate smart agriculture practices, but we are linking that very much to mobilizing investments to really boost the businesses, the small and medium-sized enterprises, create green jobs, and also attract private sector investments. With Kyrgyzstan, we are now talking about green bonds program, and the government is extremely interested in working with us for actually not just green bonds, thematic bonds program. So we have done the initial market assessment for Kyrgyzstan to develop a green bonds program, and now we are developing a GCF readiness project to start the work there. With Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, we are working on methane emissions reduction because the two countries do really have quite a lot to do when it comes to methane emissions, and we have started to doing the initial feasibility assessments for methane emissions reduction, particularly in the oil and gas sector. And all this is to say, as I think our colleague from ADB mentioned here, you really have to think about the country context. One size fits all will not really be suitable, but at the same time, there are broad overarching umbrellas that we can think about, like the NDCs, as I mentioned, also the GCF country programs, as well as national adaptation plans, low emission long-term development strategies, etc., to bring in that umbrella type focus with country focus attention for what is needed for the country. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Achalam. I would like actually to open a bit the discussion. Yeah, you had a lot of input, but I would also be first open the floor for questions, but also be interested, reflecting maybe from the side of the partner countries, you know, listening and looking to the policies, to the requirements, and so on. What do you see like maybe not too surprised to you the question, but maybe what are the main challenges meeting the requirements and coming also from the policy level to bankable programs with the MDBs, but also with potential private investment? You can join the panel already. We'll be at the second panel as well, but I think it would be good to reflect a bit also from the side of the Central Asian countries.
Yeah, thank you, Torsten, for the question. So for the convenience of the audience, I will be responding in Russian. Во-первых, я считаю, в Казахстане, в Центральной Азии основные проблемы для финансирования зеленых проектов – это, наверное, нехватка знаний в области зеленых финансов. Да? Когда мы создавали рынок зеленых финансов в Казахстане, изначально мы делали именно фокус на capacity building. Очень много проводили семинаров, вебинаров с участием основных стейкхолдеров рынка капитала. Это инвестиционные компании, это банки, это фондовые биржи и так далее. Это один момент. Потом необходимо создавать, наверное, законодательную базу для зеленых финансов, единый, понятный язык для всех участников рынка капитала. Мы в 2021 году разработали таксономию зеленых проектов для Казахстана. После этого мы видим бум выпуска зеленых облигаций в Казахстане. Третий момент, наверное, еще один момент – это качество пайплайна зеленых проектов. Не все проекты качественные, не все проекты bankable, feasible. Из-за этого многие инвесторы отказываются. Еще один момент, наверное, этот риск, наверное, не связан не только с зелеными финансами, а в целом рынком капитала Центральной Азии – это валютный риск. Валютный риск. Почему? Потому что эмитенты в наших странах пытаются привлечь деньги в локальной валюте, но международные финансовые организации не всегда имеют локальные валюты, из-за этого приходится получить финансирование в долларах, юанях и так далее. Это очень большой валютный риск для наших эмитентов. И здесь пока что не работает хеджинг-механизм, механизм хеджирования. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое за этот intervention. I would like to ask maybe again a little bit more. If you mentioned Dr. Yang and Dr. Achala, the policies, NDCs, and those things we see in the most NDCs of the country, a little bit depending on the countries. very much focus on adaptation. Yeah. And how do you see the possibilities for having bankable projects in adaptation? So I think what we easily see is potential investment in mitigation and so on, but really bankable projects in adaptation for potential, not only the MDBs, but also for private investment. Maybe Dr. Chang first.
Pasipa. So this is a very good question. So far globally, mobilizing private sector to working on national adaptation plan has been a challenge, not just in Central Asian countries, but all over. So it is very important to work on the enabling environment, to work on the policy element. And our colleague GGGI mentioned, it is also important to align the policy with all Central Asian countries are facing very narrow physical space, including even Kazakhstan. So we have to think about how to also work to try to greening the budgeting and financial sector management, procurement, and sector policies. For example, the energy sector, you need to have very good cost recovery tariffs, which has been one of the challenges. In water sector, the water tariff has also been a very struggling issue. And we do have constantly disaster risk problems in all the countries. So how do we really mobilizing private sector to actually channel in the private sector, working not just the bankable projects and also helping them to invest the human resources has been a big challenge. I think by working together, we should be able to work, find different mechanisms we are working on. So in countries like Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, we are working on thinking to provide the budget support to unlock the barriers to do the reforms, to make sure the budgeting is supporting green transition. Just actually today, our board will approve a Kazakhstan project, which is happening in a few hours, which is working on the physical space and financial management. I stop here.
If you look at adaptation and resilience in isolation, that is definitely difficult to mobilize funding, particularly from private sector. And we know even in the UNFCCC process, we say that adaptation has been the poor cousin of mitigation for so many years. Adaptation did not receive sufficient level of attention for many years in the UNFCCC process as well. But when it comes to actual practical application at country level, if we think about adaptation as an opportunity and link it to the sectors that actually can attract private finance, then it becomes a different story. For example, we have a project in the Philippines that is a climate smart agriculture project where we actually support a number of farmer groups to provide access to markets in three products: calamansi, seaweed, banana, and bringing in the small business groups together, and then bringing in a uptaker, a private investor to buy the products from these coordinated groups through the provincial government, actually has resulted in a much more attractive proposition for the private sector. So the private investor now has agreed to put $45 million to buy products from these farmer groups for in the coming 5 years. So what I'm saying is you really have to think about how to link it to markets rather than, of course, when it comes to last mile communities, it's a difficult story, but creating opportunities, particularly to access to markets and bringing in that policy alignment that we mentioned through the government interventions, it's going to create a different story. And I just came back from India, where we are now discussing about bringing in agri-photovoltaic, agri-PV to 100 sites in India. And this is, when you think about agri-PV, solar PV, what immediately comes to your mind is mitigation. Okay, we are going to reduce emissions by putting agri-PV. But actually, to my mind, when you put these solar PVs in the farmlands, hectares and hectares of farmlands, and when you put the relevant crops that are actually going to thrive in the shade of the solar PV, then it becomes a different story. So we are now doing a feasibility of what products, what crops that we can put, like garlic, turmeric, the crops that actually thrive in the shades of the solar panels. Then it becomes a adaptation and resilience story, because you then build the resilience of these farmer communities to really have an income through the project that we bring in. And as I mentioned, we are doing the feasibility study for 100 sites in India, and it is going to be a big project. And now I'm actually having discussions with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry in India, and also agriculture, to really shape this as a resilience and adaptation project. What I'm saying is, in short, again, we really have to think about how to perhaps change the narrative and find ways to bring in private sector. But government has to play a role here, bringing in concessional financing to really support the initial activities and help create those businesses to thrive and green jobs. And that way, they also get to know the know-how of accessing funding from the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would open the floor for 1-2 questions to this panel. And of course, we will be in the second panel reflecting this more also on the technical part. But please, yes, Oliver.
Hi, this is Oliver Canosa. I'm working with CAREC as an international consultant. I just wanted to ask you, both ADB and GGGI, where do you see public-private partnerships and blended finance in the work you are doing as an enabling tool to raise additional capital and to lower risk in this type of transactions?
We are in action. We just approved the project this year. It's a coal to gas transition, Almaty, recently in Kazakhstan. That is a big scale project already in Kara region. And we are the biggest multilateral issuer for all kinds of local currency bonds in Kazakhstan. We have issued the green bonds, gender bonds, sustainability bonds, etc. So we are now moving to look at how to actually utilize the local currencies mobilized to finance the blended projects. You are very right in that kind of conceptualizing. So what we are facing, the biggest challenge is really funding the bankable projects. You go to all the countries, you say, look, which country is ready to be, which project is ready to be financed. We don't really have a very bankable list to be going out for bidding. So it is very important to do the bankable projects together for us to come up with the bankable projects. And because all the countries we are facing are not really a big country, so all the donors should work together to do one assessment, not multiple assessment bothering the country. So because of capacity constraints, we should do joint assessment. And this assessment can be used and endorsed by everyone, and then going out for bid for those projects. This is very important. And on the other hand, from ADB point of view, we are working to really scale up our financing. We used to be, until this year, we are $24 billion bank. From next year onwards, we are scaling up to lend 36 billion annually. So we just approved, we call it the CAF, Capital Adequacy Framework. So that will hopefully bring a lot of concessional funding for the region, especially for Tajik and Kyrgyzstan. We create a spatial window. We intend to create a spatial window, which is both on climate and also disaster risk management. So that spatial window is very important under our ADF. Thank you.
Thank you. And last question, Ludmila.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Людмила Киктенко, региональный экологический центр Центральной Азии. Вы правильно говорите, что страны нашего региона, возможно, не такие большие проекты предлагаются. Здесь увеличить масштаб, наверное, можно, если проекты региональные, объединенные, региональный подход идет к проработке проектов. Скажите, пожалуйста, какие есть механизмы вот у вас в ваших институтах для того, чтобы поддержать обсуждение именно региональных проектов на 2 страны, на 3 страны совместных, и не только обсудить их концептуально, но еще и проработать, как вы говорите, чтобы они были bankable projects. Есть ли такие механизмы у вас?
Okay, very good questions. We use regional approach. For example, we found it more active and more effective when it comes to air pollution control, for example. So for the one very good example is Almaty to Bishkek economic corridor. So that will link, we developed this road project many years ago. I was part of that. So then we are now looking for e-mobility projects on this corridor because there are many, it's quite busy ones. And then we work on the regional cooperation on e-mobilities, air pollutions, agriculture, smart agriculture, and tourism. So it is called the economic corridor. We generate both public and private. Everyone can contribute to that. Another example I can mention is the smart agriculture projects, because you are sharing the common river, you are sharing the common corridor. One project I personally involved for this Dushanbe to Bishkek road, we designed, we prepared as one project. We did the 3 phases. So we prepared the detailed design. So we did the costing. And then we go outside to say, look, who can finance it? And we are doing the project like building blocks.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. I think it's, maybe a brief answer.
Right. I think regional cooperation is one way to think in terms of how to scale up. And we just got an approval for a regional project between Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan from the Korea Ministry of Environment. This is for flood resilience boosting in the 2 countries, particularly looking at the cross-border work as well as country-focused work. I just want to perhaps bring in an example from ASEAN, where we work in ASEAN, all 10 ASEAN countries to support their solid waste management work. This is also again a Korea-funded ASEAN Korea Cooperation Fund funded project, and there are the main work there is the learning between the countries and really bringing in the good best practices from different countries to improve the work in other countries. And I think we're with Central Asia being a very, very strong and united coalition of countries, there is a lot more we can do. In addition to this flood resilience project, we are having discussions on thematic and social bonds work that we want to do in countries, as well as learn from different countries, and also access to markets through the work on various areas of work, particularly related to agriculture, as our colleague Dr. Young mentioned here. So, I mean, we can discuss further how we can go into nitty-gritty of what we can do in the regional cooperation related work. But yesterday in our meeting with the 4 ministers, this is one of the key focus areas that they actually re-emphasized to us, the need for us to work with all the countries in a regional manner and a more cohesive manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would then stop this panel and this stage, and thank you very much. A very much warm applause to our panelists of the first panel. Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang, Dr. Abisinghe. Thank you very much. And please feel free to ask the question for the second panel as well, and use the opportunity to have this interaction and intercommunication like we had. Thank you very much. Now it's my honor to invite the speakers for the second panel, where we actually would try to go a little bit more technical, but looking also at the comprehensive approach on country level. And the first speaker is Manas Gishtuaniev. He's the vice chairman of the Green Center of the Astana International Finance Center, AIFC, and a member of the board of directors of Moynak hydroelectric power plant named after Kantaniev. He's a very experienced professional with a demonstrated history of working in the financial service industry. He has an extended expertise in financial modeling, economics, green finance, and sustainable development, collected during his academic life at Aberdeen University, a business school in Scotland, and within its professional experience in public, private, and non-governmental institutions such as the Eurasian Environmental Fund, and also at the Ministry of Economy of the Republic of Kazakhstan. A warm welcome. Second, I would like to invite to the panel Mr. Anwar Abdraev, the president of the Union of Banks of the Kyrgyz Republic. He's the cybernetics economist by education and holds a PhD in economics, associate professor. He has 14 years of experience in the banking sector, mainly in management positions. He has held managerial positions in successful banks and financial institutions such as the Kyrgyz Bank, the Kyrgyz Foreign Trade Bank, the Eco Bank, and others. And the third speaker, I would like a warm welcome to Anwar, sorry. As third panelist, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Stefano Signori. He leads the thematic group on climate change, sustainable energy, and nuclear safety in the Directorate General for International Partnership, DG INPA, of the European Union, of the European Commission. Most welcome, Stefano. Stefano is a qualified lawyer and joined the European Commission in 2000 after having worked 5 years at the Italian Central Bank. Between 2004 and 2008, he worked in the office of the late Commission Vice President Franco Frattini, and he became head of union in 2009. Working in the Director General for Home Affairs since 2010, he oversees programming in the areas related to migration. In 2015, he moved to the area of international cooperation, working on migration and employment. And as of 2019, he deals now with climate and energy files. And last not least, and we are very happy to have you here. Sorry, I have to. Mrs. Carolina Fuentes from the Green Climate Fund. Warm welcome. Carolina Fuentes is the director of GCF's country programming division. She was formerly secretary to the board and head of governance affairs in the Green Climate Fund. Before joining GCF, she acted as deputy director general for international cooperation at the Ministry of Environment and natural resources in Mexico, where she was in charge of climate change, international cooperation, and engagement with economic and environmental organizations. She also previously worked as a director for climate change in the same ministry, where she represented Mexico in the international climate change negotiations. So very experienced with COPs and all the meetings. Carolina holds a master's degree in nature, society, and environmental policy from the University of Oxford, and a BA degree in international relations from the National University of Mexico. Most welcome. Yeah, I would actually like to bring the discussion from the first panel a little bit to the second as well, and would start with the question to you, Manas. We had about the requirements, and GGI made it also quite clear, and also from the ADB, that one of the requirements would be to see really a clear commitment, a clear policy of the countries for a zero carbon future. And what would be also, how to say, trustable, or would be a real reliable future. How do you see this? How do you assess the situation in Central Asia, maybe from Kazakhstan, but also broader? Do the investors, be it the international banks or private investors, have this clear perspective now? Are we sure that we can offer this perspective?
Да, спасибо большое, Торстен, за вопрос. Очень хороший вопрос, я считаю. Да, в Казахстане мы поставили цель углеродной нейтральности до 2060 года. Мы понимаем то, что очень большой объем инвестиций необходимо для достижения данной цели. И здесь, наверное, роль рынка капитала очень высока. В Казахстане из-за этого мы начали развивать рынок устойчивых финансов в целом, да. Мы начали эту работу в 2018 году еще, создавали необходимые законодательные базы для этого. И только через 2 года, в 2020 году, у нас состоялся выпуск первых зеленых облигаций. И в целом мы поняли 3 момента основных для развития рынка устойчивых финансов для Казахстана, Центральной Азии. Первый момент, как я отметил до этого, это capacity building. Мы были сфокусированы на capacity building, потому что если банкиры не понимают, что такое зеленые финансы, институты развития локальные, да, еще не понимают, какие механизмы можно использовать для достижения углеродной нейтральности, это очень тяжело. Очень много работы было проведено с участием глобальных лидеров в области зеленых финансов. Это также коллеги из Climate Bonds Initiative и так далее. Второе, что мы сделали, это мы разработали национальную таксономию в области зеленых финансов, который был утвержден в 2021 году, 31 декабря. И это дает как раз понятный язык, да, для всех стейкхолдеров в области зеленых финансов. Третье, это, я думаю, для достижения данной цели это необходимо стимулирование инвестиций, создание налоговых льгот, финансовых стимулов для компаний-инвесторов, которые ориентированы на устойчивые проекты и практики. Например, в некоторых странах эмитенты зеленых облигаций могут получить субсидии от государства. За примером далеко ходить не надо, даже в Казахстане у нас работает механизм субсидирования купонных ставок по зеленым облигациям и по зеленым кредитам. Изначально у нас на рынке выпускали зеленые облигации очень крупные компании, это квазигоскомпании, это портфельные компании Самрук Казна, как Самрук Энерго, Кигок. Сейчас мы видим тенденцию, что МСБ, малый и средний бизнес, идет на выпуск зеленых облигаций. Это, я думаю, большая работа была сделана именно со стороны Казахстана, поэтому вот такой бум идет. Изначально первый выпуск зеленых облигаций Казахстана был на сумму $500 тысяч США, 2020 год. Это очень маленькая сумма, но сегодня мы видим большой объем выпуска зеленых облигаций. И на сегодня объем рынка устойчивых облигаций Казахстана достиг $1 миллиарда США. И на следующий год мы видим объем на 3 миллиарда США. Также международная практика показывает, на этапе формирования рынка зеленых облигаций очень важно выпуск так называемых стратегических облигаций со стороны государства. Такие облигации были суверенные зеленые облигации Франции, Германии. В этом году наши соседи Узбекистан выпустил первые свои суверенные облигации. Это дает сигнал рынку, то, что есть такой механизм, можно привлечь деньги через выпуск зеленых облигаций. Здесь хотел бы еще отметить одно. Вот мне нравится очень хорошо слово competition. Это сочетание слов cooperation и competition. У нас один регион Центральной Азии. Здесь, я думаю, не надо создавать заново велосипед. В Казахстане Центр зеленых финансов МФЦ, где я работаю, имеет очень хорошую компетенцию в области зеленых финансов. И у нас два направления. Первое направление – это консалтинг как раз правительств стран СНГ, Центральной Азии по созданию необходимой базы по зеленым устойчивым финансам. Мы эту работу активно ведем в Казахстане и в Кыргызской республике. Второе направление – это как раз то, что отличает зеленых облигаций от обычных облигаций. Мы являемся единственной компанией в Центральной Азии, которая аккредитована Climate Bonds Initiative и Международная ассоциация рынков капитала как Accredited Second Party Opinion Provider. И здесь, в Казахстане, мы верифицировали более 20 выпусков зеленых облигаций, устойчивых облигаций, социальных облигаций. И в том году в Кыргызстане у нас было 2 выпуска зеленых и гендерных облигаций. Сейчас активно работаем с Узбекистаном, Таджикистаном и Азербайджаном. Здесь, я думаю, надо коллегам, нашим соседям перенять опыт Казахстана, именно экспертизу Центра зеленых финансов МФЦ, по продвижению рынка зеленых финансов, потому что у нас это заняло 5 лет до выпуска первых зеленых облигаций. В Кыргызстане это уже заняло 2 года, как мы начали работу. И в Узбекистане, я уверен, что это займет намного меньше. Да. Мы сейчас работаем, в пайплайне есть проекты, есть понимание, кто инвестор, какие надо документы готовить, и инвестор уже четко понимает, какие будут бенефиты, если инвестор, эмитент выпустит данные зеленые облигации. Спасибо.
Можно, очень интересно, а можно уточнить, вот, или да, конкретизировать, что было главный фактор успеха? Почему частные банки начинали выпускать green bonds? И я не имею в виду государственные частные банки, а именно частные банки. Что было вот именно этот success-фактор для этого?
Я думаю, в целом, если выпуск, изначально дебютный выпуск зеленых облигаций делается со стороны крупных банков, это открывает двери для остальных. У остальных будет уже понимание, доверие по рынку зеленых облигаций. Второе, мы в Казахстане создали, я скажу, уникальные условия для эмитентов зеленых облигаций. У нас есть 2 биржевые площадки, это Казахстанская фондовая биржа и фондовая биржа МФЦ, Международного финансового центра Астана. И здесь наши биржевые площадки тоже пошли на уступки. В Казахстане у нас нулевые ставки по комиссиям, листинговым комиссиям по зеленым облигациям. Это первый момент. Второй момент. В Казахстане МСБ может просубсидировать купонную ставку по зеленым облигациям. Если сейчас на рынке купонная ставка в Казахстане 21-22% в локальной валюте, а эмитенты зеленых облигаций могут получить финансирование за 6%, да, купон. Остальную часть купона субсидируется государством. Это второй момент. Третий момент. Хотя в Казахстане молодой рынок зеленых облигаций, но он системный. Прежде всего, почему? Потому что изначально мы, когда строили эту систему, мы пытались соответствовать международным лучшим практикам. Когда мы писали таксономию зеленых проектов, мы смотрели на таксономию Climate Bonds Initiative, смотрели таксономию Европейского Союза. И сейчас наша таксономия полностью соответствует лучшим международным практикам. И это дает уверенность инвесторам зарубежным покупать наши облигации и финансировать зеленые проекты в Казахстане.
Спасибо большое, Manas. Thank you so much, Manas, for this explanation and adding. I would then come to you, Anwar Abdraev. We were now listening about the approaches successfully started and implemented in Kazakhstan quite easily. But we see also a lot of challenges, and maybe you could a bit reflect on from the side of the representative of Association of Private Banks from Kyrgyzstan. What are actually the challenges? Why it's not so easily to implement it like we heard from Manas, the approach in Kazakhstan?
Торстен, спасибо за предоставленное слово. Вообще, 2 дня присутствия на этом большом мероприятии произошли очень большие сдвиги и поменялись планы моего выступления. Было подготовлено одно направление, выслушав вчерашнее и сегодняшнее выступление, немножко произошло изменение. Кыргызстан и Казахстан, и Узбекистан – это страны с разными уровнями экономики, с населением, ВВП и так далее. Поэтому здесь говорить о каких-то абсолютных цифрах, наверное, не совсем уместно будет. 2 цифры. Население Кыргызстана 8 миллионов, ВВП около 12 миллиардов долларов. Это сами можете посмотреть, насколько есть определенные разницы. Поэтому то, что сегодня делается в Кыргызстане, это достаточно большая работа в плане сохранения климата, охраны окружающей среды. Это проблема уже не надо никому доказывать, ни большим, ни малым странам, ни с большой, ни с малой экономикой. Это проблема всего человечества. Я думаю, что бизнес здесь неуместен рассматривать в плане финансирования и вкладывания вот в эти проекты с точки зрения получения каких-то сверхдоходов и сверхприбыли. Это совершенно другая ситуация. И учитывая вот эти моменты, Союз банков, он, кстати, это ассоциация не только частных, сюда входят и государственные структуры, государственные банки, все банки Кыргызстана и ряд других финансовых институтов. В 2017 году было принято решение, достаточно весомое, достаточно серьезное, о создании зеленой финансовой корпорации с участием всех членов ССБК, Союза банков Кыргызстана, с финансированием создания определенного фонда. Но, к сожалению, этот процесс немножко затормозился по ряду причин, как субъективного, так и объективного характера. Все, что было сделано за этот период, можно перечислять и можно говорить очень много. Я могу сказать, что были сделаны определенные шаги в плане создания дорожной карты, сделаны определенные шаги в создании национальной таксономии, которая должна завершиться в самое ближайшее время. Появилось понимание между государством и частным бизнесом. Банковский сектор готов сегодня работать в этом направлении. И в подтверждение слов Манаса о том, что при поддержке, при помощи, при консалтинговых услугах Астанинского финансового центра были выпущены, да, действительно, 2 облигации в 2 частных коммерческих банках. Это на сумму $1 миллион, суммы тоже несопоставимы вот с теми, которые здесь обычно говорят, но тем не менее успешно были осуществлены вот такие эмиссии бумаг. Но что? Вы правильно отметили, есть определенные препятствия, есть определенные причины разного характера. Можно сказать и об этом говорить очень много, но основная причина, это я сейчас считаю, не до конца понимание самого бизнеса, самого частного сектора, самих банков в формах и путях получения или доступности к финансовым ресурсам, которые сегодня есть. Тот же зеленый климатический фонд, те же консультационные услуги представителей GGI и других международных институтов, которые готовы помогать в этом направлении азиатскому региону, в том числе и Кыргызстану. Манас правильно отметил, зачем выдумывать колесо, которое уже выдумано. Если взять опыт мировой, ну хотя бы азиатский опыт, Монголия шла к аккредитации в ЗКФ 5 лет, Казахстан создание своей таксономии 5 лет, Кыргызстан может этот путь пройти за полгода при достаточно хорошей интеграции наших институтах, тем более мы и географически, и ментально, и политически находимся рядом друг с другом. Поэтому здесь у меня такое предложение и призыв, чтобы действительно вчера это звучало, и сегодня я хотел продолжить, чтобы интеграция между государственными органами, частным бизнесом, в первую очередь азиатского региона, он был более успешным и эффективным. И исходя вот из этих вызовов, которые сегодня существуют и которые сегодня являются одной из основных проблем, мы, в частности, решили заняться вопросами, в частности, Союз банков решил заняться вопросами обучения и проведения консалтинговых услуг. Мы сегодня приняли решение отойти от идеи создания зеленой климатической корпорации или зеленой финансовой корпорации. Это право мы сейчас предоставляем созданному вновь Государственному банку развития, и об этом уже у нас идут определенные переговоры. А наша ассоциация или банковский сектор, мы готовы помочь в проведении вот таких консалтинговых услуг через создание на базе учебного центра Союза банков Академии ESG или Академии устойчивого развития. Вот в этом как раз-таки мы думаем, что получим определенную поддержку со стороны и Азиатского банка развития, и всех других международных институтов, и в том числе, Торстен, и проекта GIZ, и казахских наших братьев и друзей. В этом направлении мы хотели, конечно, серьезную поддержку получить. Ну, примерно вот так. Можно говорить о том, что какие еще есть определенные вопросы между государственными органами, почему до сих пор не создана национальная таксономия. Но я думаю, это вопросы мы можем отнести на дискуссионные моменты. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, Анвар. Но мы видим, что есть нужд по обучению персонала, capacity и так далее. И вы тоже говорите, что мы понимаем, что в разных странах и по-разному развито Green Taxonomy и так далее. У меня вопрос к вам, Анвар и Манас. Как вы именно региональные кооперации между вашими, и в том числе вашими институтами, можете, как сказать, помогать, что именно в регионе это развивалось лучше и быстрее? Как вы друг другу можете поддерживать?
Спасибо. Я уже сказал, что у Астанинского финансового центра на сегодняшний день есть достаточный опыт. Мы 2 года назад создавали совместную структуру и возлагали большие надежды, в том числе Союз банков участник этого мероприятия. Это при непосредственном контрольном пакете со стороны Астаны и участие нашего государственного банка, фондовой биржи и Союза банков. Мы планировали именно то, о чем я сейчас говорил, в плане проведения консалтинговых услуг и так далее, провести достаточно большую работу. Но, как всегда, бывают определенные «но». Произошли определенные политические изменения, экономические изменения, возможно, изменился тренд в работе вот самого Астанинского центра. Этот процесс не пошел. Но я думаю, что это не препятствие. Я еще раз хочу подчеркнуть. У наших казахских коллег, друзей очень большой опыт, в том числе и по выпуску тех же облигаций зеленых, и по объему их выпуска, и по доступности международным финансовым институтам. На сегодняшний день Кыргызстан, к сведению, получил от международных институтов и мобилизации внутренней порядка всего $300 миллионов. Эта цифра, конечно, не соответствует тем потребностям, которые сегодня есть. Поэтому мы с радостью готовы принять те разработки и наработки, которые сделаны на сегодняшний день Казахский национальный банк в плане регулирования, надзора и стимулирования деятельности коммерческих банков. Эта работа у них уже проведена. Национальной, как уже сказал Манас, национальной таксономии, которая уже действует и принята правительством и государством, и принята частным сектором. И, конечно, обучение наших специалистов, банков, в плане через подготовку тренеров нашей кыргызской стороны. Вот в этом отношении, конечно, я думаю, большие надежды мы возлагаем на наше совместное сотрудничество.
Спасибо.
Здесь не должно быть старше, младше, здесь не должно быть кто лучше, кто... Здесь правильно отмечали предыдущие выступающие о том, что для сохранения климата и определенных экологических ситуаций очень важен коридор, проект по коридору сохранению экологической чистоты воздуха, надо его задействовать. И с этой стороны, я думаю, вот то, что я сказал, это как раз присуще и будет характерно для наших взаимоотношений.
Конкретных иллюстраций того возможности кооперации и там, где вы уже кооперируете.
Да, на самом деле мы очень много работы делаем именно по передачи своего опыта, экспертизы в регионе. Как я отметил до этого, то, что мы начали работу в том году с Кыргызской республики, в этом году активно работаем в республиканской фондовой бирже Ташкент по созданию сегмента устойчивых финансов. И у нас есть в пайплайне несколько эмитентов Узбекистанской республики именно в части выпуска зеленых облигаций локально на Ташкентской фондовой бирже и по кросс-листингу social gender bonds на бирже Астанинского финансового центра, на АИКС. И в целом мы видим очень хороший интерес со стороны узбекистанских инвесторов и эмитентов. И здесь необходимо, наверное, отметить, когда мы начинали свой путь по развитию рынка устойчивых финансов, нам очень хорошо помог ПРОН UNDP Казахстан. Они просубсидировали купонную ставку зеленых облигаций в Казахстане. Если там на рынке ставка была 1,75, на то время ПРОН смог почти полную стоимость купон просубсидировать, и в конце эмитент получил почти бесплатные деньги. И здесь этот механизм тоже работает на самом деле в Узбекистане. Мы сейчас с коллегами UNDP Узбекистан активно прорабатываем этот вопрос дебютного выпуска зеленых облигаций Ташкентской фондовой биржи с участием ПРОН UNDP Узбекистан, именно субсидирование купонных ставок зеленых облигаций в Узбекистане. И второй момент, как нам помогает UNDP Узбекистан, это про social gender bonds. В Узбекистане также они оказывают technical assistance в написании гендерной политики для эмитента. Это работа вот по Узбекистану. В Таджикистане есть несколько компаний, крупных компаний, с кем мы на связи. Работаем мы на связи с Центральноазиатской фондовой биржей, которая находится в Душанбе. В целом пытаемся также развивать рынок устойчивых финансов в Таджикистане в том числе. И сейчас, вот вчера только в рамках этого форума, на площадке этого форума, в рамках сессии Green Pitching было подписание меморандума между AFC Green Finance Center и таджикистанской компанией Акиавеста именно в части зеленого финансирования их проектов в Таджикистане.
Спасибо большое, Manas. Тоже за иллюстрации. We had now a look a little bit more in the details in the countries. I would invite us now to step a little bit back and also have an insight from the Green Climate Fund. Caroline, what are the strategic requirements from GCF to provide climate finance? And maybe you can add also the question of quality standards concerning ambitions, scientific foundation for the investment planning. You know, I know the GCF is now not looking only to country planning as such for the GCF, but really this approach of investment planning. Please, Caroline.
Many thanks, and first of all, thanks for the invitation to GIZ and also to the Green Central Asia. It is an honor for us as well to join efforts and to also join this group of distinguished panelists when it comes to boosting the uptake in the region. That is precisely also what we're seeking with the updated strategic plan of the GCF, to increase as well the programming in all regions, and particularly when it comes to Central Asia, there is a need as well to enhance the programming that we have as a GCF in collaboration with our partners. Now, in terms also of the strategy that lies ahead in supporting countries in enhancing their programming and their climate capacities, we now have a revised readiness strategy that is also one of the foundational pieces that we're aiming to deploy in countries so we can effectively support them in the strategic planning of readiness requests. This is a very important development because now we have moved from a year-to-year planning of interventions when it comes to capacity building and readiness into more strategic proposals. Now countries can access up to 4 million per year during the 4-year programming cycle 2024-2027 for capacity building efforts. And this capacity is also supported in terms of institutional capacity building that includes institutions at the national level and also direct access entities, programming, coming up with specific projects and programs, and also the creation of knowledge and transboundary collaboration. All these aspects are very important, also in the context of Central Asian countries, given the fact that one of the important pieces, and this is also one of the recommendations that we have, is that we mobilize the local institutions in Central Asian regions. At present, we don't have direct access entities in the region. We're working through internationals, and that has proved helpful, but we also welcome the partnership with direct access entities in the countries in the region. In addition to this, also one of the key pieces of our programming is the country programs, and also GGGI was making reference to those. So we support countries in identifying their priorities, building on their NDCs and on their NAPs, and helping them to translate them into investments, both for mitigation and for adaptation. For this, also we deploy support in terms of a project preparation facility. If there is a need as well for some projects, we can have this facility that is called PPF to deploy additional support for project development, so the projects can reach the quality needed for the investments that can go through our board and can become funded activities. We're also planning to support countries with the climate investment plans, as just mentioned, and this is also intended to go beyond GCF and to mobilize other sources of finance and identify how GCF can complement also with other sources. We really want to mobilize that catalytic role that we have in the climate finance architecture.
Thank you very much for explaining. I think this country investment plans is really a good opportunity to bring the potential investments and the public and grants, but also the private investments together. I would expect one question given to you from the audience is about the regional approach. As we are here, Central Asia countries coming together in this pavilion. How do you see the potential for regional programs supported by GCF in Central Asia?
That is right. Many thanks, and thanks for asking, because we have at present some regional projects in our pipeline. We have one regional project that's been submitted by an accredited entity that is addressing climate information and early warning systems in the region. We also understand that a common priority, and also mindful of the fact, as mentioned, that all countries in Central Asia are different, but one of the common priorities that have been identified are health and climate. So also that is one of the areas that can be supported in terms of a regional program. We do support programs in GCF, multi-country programs. Most of times we have a lead country for those programs, and those are submitted through an accredited entity. And the lead country coordinates with the other countries in the region. And it's also very helpful in terms of transboundary collaboration and making sure that countries learn from their own experiences and can build together to address common challenges. So that is a possibility, and also we have the possibility of deploying the readiness program for capacity building to provide regional support.
Maybe one last question also to you regarding, don't call them champions, but countries where you see they're attracting most of investment in climate investment, including private investments, from your big screen of the countries through GCF.
Well, also to mention a country in the region, we have Mongolia. That is a country that has a direct access entity, has bank, and also we have a good number of projects in the portfolio. And the lessons can be shared as well with other countries in the region in terms of moving ahead when it comes to investments and to mobilizing the muscle of local institutions as well to develop projects and programs. So that is one of the examples where we have a local entity, we have a good number of projects in the portfolio, and many of them now under implementation, and we want to see that replicated.
Thank you very much, Carolina. I know you have to leave a bit earlier, so please feel free to leave, but I would come to the European Union and to Stefano, to you. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Maybe just a more general question. What support the EU could offer for climate finance, and also which instruments out of this are available for the Central Asian countries or for the Central Asia region?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting us in this panel. Let me first say that the numbers for climate finance contribution have been announced, and as you probably know, the European Union has reached a level of 28.5 billion euro of climate finance that is provided, out of which more or less 5 billion for Asia. And in the last 10 years, we have mobilized several hundred millions euro in grants in climate relevant actions in Central Asia countries in areas like energy, water, agriculture. What we are doing under the current framework, so in the next few years, is in the frame of Global Gateway. And the conversation that we had so far is very much relevant for this, because basically it is about mobilizing private sector investment. We know that the limited ODA money that we have, it needs to be used very carefully, and what we want to do is to use as a catalytic factor to attract private sector investment. We are doing this in a Team Europe spirit, which means that we are strengthening the cooperation with our member state and with the financial institution. We have launched a Team Europe initiative on energy, water, and climate that is carried out with the EIB, EBRD, and 7 EU member states, and which is going to mobilize in the next few years 700 million in finance in support of activities in those 3 areas. Let me say that we have already identified some guarantee agreements like HIBAR with EBRD on energy and the decarbonization of energy intensive industries with EBRD again. So let's perhaps come to the areas and some examples of projects where we are involved, starting from energy, which of course has a huge potential in the region, as we know. Hydropower, of course, which is very, very relevant for Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Of course, we are looking into Rogun. This is a collective effort, as we know, and it has already been mentioned, where we want to de-risk EIB loan, and this is, of course, being discussed with the partners, but also in Kyrgyzstan, we are looking into operation in the hydropower sector. The solar also has a very big potential. With here EBRD and EIB, we have participated to the support for solar parks in Uzbekistan, as you probably know, for up to 900 megawatt. This is very promising endeavor. Energy efficiency also is another area where we have been active in Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, primarily through the EBRD. Let me also mention the regional interconnection and cooperation through SECA project with the World Bank. Other areas which are irrelevant is water and irrigation, critical raw material and green hydrogen. We have signed a memorandum of understanding with Kazakhstan in those 2 areas. And last but not least, methane, because as we know, now that Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan joined the Global Methane Pledge, this open up areas of cooperation, and we are working through the International Methane Emission Observatory with UNEP, and I'm sure there are opportunities there too. So let me stop here for the benefit of time, but as I said, there is a lot happening in these areas which are climate relevant in Central Asia, and we want to scale up our support in the future years. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stefano. Yeah, by the way, there is tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. the presentation of the Team Europe initiative on water, energy, climate in Central Asia. So here in this pavilion, we will go in deep, also look to the Team Europe initiative at 1:15 tomorrow at the 5th of December here in this room. But let me also give the chance to the audience for additional questions or comment to the speakers or to the topics we discussed so far.
Hi, my question goes to AFC and the Union of Banks. It's about the fact that generally sustainable finance, as it is right now, it's easily accessed by large corporations through green bonds, large sustainability-linked loans, etc. how are you approaching the fact that SMEs are also in the need for accessing these beneficial type of sustainable finance instruments?
Можно ли еще один микрофон впереди?
Да, спасибо,
на
есть.
публику. Да.
Да, как я отмечал до этого, изначально в Казахстане крупные компании выпускали зеленые облигации. Изначально так было. Потом мы создали механизм субсидирования купонной ставки именно для малого и среднего бизнеса. Если на рынке сейчас Казахстана купонная ставка для обычных облигаций 21-22%, конечно, это зависит от эмитента, но для эмитентов зеленых облигаций эта ставка всего лишь 6%. Остальная часть субсидируется государством. Это огромная поддержка для развития рынка зеленых облигаций именно для МСБ. Спасибо.
Анва, коротко добавьте.
Да, действительно, эта проблема есть для МСБ. Но на сегодняшний день один из наших коммерческих банков находится на стадии аккредитации в Зеленом климатическом фонде. Как я уже выше сказал, Государственный банк развития на сегодняшний день готовит документы для аккредитации в других международных институтах. То есть вот эти два банка, по крайней мере, будут точками входа для получения определенной ресурсной базы и дальнейшее его рефинансирование на рынке других коммерческих банков и финансовых институтов. И через них уже рефинансирование малого и среднего бизнеса. Вот в этом мы видим сегодня цель и задачу. А в дальнейшем, я думаю, большее количество банков будет иметь доступ к определенным финансовым ресурсам, которые на сегодня рассматриваются, и предложение на рынке достаточно большое. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Anwar. If there are no, is there another question? Yes, please. There is a microphone in the audience, Volodya. Okay. Last question from the audience, please.
Sorry. It's pretty obvious that the practices which we heard about were very much focused on decarbonization through either infrastructure project, larger ones, or through energy decarbonization. It's difficult to argue with the fact that resource efficiency is also quite a large contribution to the decarbonization. Are there in your practices attention on resource efficiency as a path to first dealing with resources and waste and circularity, but also to address the carbon or facilitate carbon neutrality? So how about resources as a way towards reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions?
Да, давайте отвечу на этот вопрос. Мы понимаем то, что зеленая облигация – это для тех компаний, у которых основная деятельность core бизнес зеленая. Да. Но есть те компании, которые carbon intensive, да, как вы сказали, которые, наверное, больше негативно влияют на экологию и так далее. Для таких компаний у нас есть другой инструмент KPI Linked Bonds, да, мы знаем, или их называют Sustainability Linked Bonds. Недавно на этой неделе мы в Казахстане сделали первый KPI Linked Bonds в Казахстане. Это проект связано, ТЭЦ переводится с угля на газ. Здесь, получается, компания берет на себя обязательства корпоративные, что ежегодно будет уменьшать объемы СО2 выбросов. Если компания достигает данных KPI, тогда купонная ставка уменьшается. Если не достигает, купонная ставка повышается наоборот. Это такая мотивация для эмитента и инвестора. Такие продукты новые, инновационные, мы сейчас в Казахстане внедряем и активно работаем. Спасибо.
Спасибо.
Наш президент позавчера, выступая, сказал о том, что мы должны достигнуть нулевой ставки выбросов к 50 году. Для этого, по расчетам, порядка 40 миллиардов долларов. Это почти 3,5 ВВП страны. Естественно, без каких-то внешних заимствований, внешней поддержки это невозможно будет сделать. Вот исходя из этого, вот сегодня страна работает, и бизнес в том числе, и частные компании, и коммерческие банки будут работать в этом направлении. Абсолютно известно, что этого своими силами достигнуть невозможно.
Спасибо большое, Anwar. We have the opportunity also to go more deep in a question regarding the carbon markets in Central Asia, together with the Astana International Finance Center in the side event and training sessions coming up today later on here. But I would actually have a last question to Stefano as well. I would raise also a question to you, Stefano, a last one. Do you see, you mentioned the intervention and the MOUs you have with Central Asian countries, especially with Kazakhstan. Do you see already somehow, I would call it Brussels effect, that Central Asians are in the policy side moving forward decarbonization policies more?
I think there is more and more the evidence that decarbonizing makes economic sense for the countries and for the industries, because basically it allows to save money, in particular considering that the Central Asian economy are very much carbon intensive, amongst the one most carbon intensive in the world. Therefore, there are big gains that can be made with, let's say, large economic benefits. Therefore, the support that we want to provide is exactly there in order to maximize those opportunities. I made the example of the solar park in Uzbekistan and the hydropower in Tajikistan and in Kyrgyzstan, because the region has a lot of, let's say, potential for also regional integration, and there is a lot we can exchange from the European perspective in terms of European, let's say, market integration in water, in energy, in digital as well. Therefore, I think that there is a lot we can exchange in terms of experience with the spirit, in a spirit of partnership.
Thank you. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists, for this very not only interesting but precise discussions on different aspects. I won't try now to resume all, to bring all together all the statements, but I think there are some of the points really I would like to underline from the discussion again. One thing we heard, we have this decarbonization policy strategic, let's say, movement moving forward, but a very clear statement that is important to think all sectors, like not only energy production, but also efficiency, agriculture or land use in general. The second one, we understand to think really about or to understand the requirements for climate finance, be it the bank, but be it also the private investments, really to think about those requirements and what is needed to do. Therefore, we heard also about the potential for regional cooperation on these issues, and you made it quite clear with really good examples to work further there. And what I also heard, and what is crucial maybe, is the HCD, the development of capacity of staff, HCD measures for further development in order to have the basis and the institutions and the structures in Central Asian countries for boosting the climate finance. I think this is, from my point of view, the main takeaways from the discussion. We will actually, together with Karik, trying to bring it in a more, not a statement, but to bring it like the main messages out of this climate finance day today, and share it with you and the public on the site. Thank you again very much for all the participants, and also greeting the online listeners here. Thank you very much, and a warm applause to all of you.
Can you remind me when there is the sessions from the initiative?
Yes, this is, we have it, there will be actually also the director of INPA. This is on the...
Yeah, that of course, that Carla is there, yeah.
Yeah, she will be here. This is on the 5th at 1:50.
Okay. And the carbon market one that you mentioned?
This is now
today?
that's today. Today is, you see, is on climate finance immediately afterwards. So this 11:15.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay.
Sorry, I did not meet you beforehand. We had some technical issues. So
don't worry.
thank you so much for
Stuck in the
joining. Yeah.
queue and,
Yeah.
that was,
Good.
very good. Вы молодец. Все круто прошло.
Ну, это хорошо, да?
Это очень хорошо.
Тема хорошая, часто
Участие на онлайн было порядка 40 участников. Это очень интересно.
Тема хорошая. Это мои коллеги тоже.